Hail, fellows, and welcome to Pen Night Radio, where we slay our personal demons and arm ourselves to write our best content. I am your host, PK, unofficially knighted by a fictional character, which means you do not have to call me sir. Genre. It can be an ugly word. What is genre? What genre am I writing in? How do I choose? Do I have to follow any rules? Can I just write my own thing and figure that out later? See, if you're published or hoping to get published, you've crossed paths with the idea of genre. Heck, if you're an avid reader or music listener, you know what a genre is. But is it truly crucial to the creative process? Is it possible not to write in a genre? These are questions I've been pondering lately, and if you are too, you're in the right place. Let's dive into why we're here. Let's take our pens and slay the demons that are dragging us down today. Then we write. And we are live. Pen Night Radio is dedicated to you. It is brought to you by One True Promotion, an alliance of authors that are dedicated to promoting the indie community. Please look us up on all the pages where you can follow. Excuse me, One True Promotion. I can't remember when I first heard the term genre. As a quick refresher, genre is a category of artistic composition, as in music or literature, characterized by similarities in form, style, or subject matter. Form, style, subject matter. That's what comprises genre, which is a category of music, of literature, of movies, fantasy movies, romance films, horror films, science fiction, realistic fiction, detective fiction, rock music, pop music, R&B, opera, electric, metal. We could go on all day just listing every genre there is in every art form. That won't get us anywhere. What I'm wondering is, have you ever felt overwhelmed at the thought of placing your own work into a genre? Have you ever just written something and you don't know how to describe it? You know it means something to you. It might have come from a dream or an image or that appeared in your mind. It could be your response to something social or political happening in the world. It might have a new and interesting atmosphere that you just don't know how to nail down, because the truth is you're responding to something in your own unique way. You are an individual and your art reflects a unique image. So that's a lot to think about, isn't it? Genre is one of the things I've struggled with most as an artist, because whenever I create an idea that's kind of a crossover, such as a story about a person who lives in an old Western town in a world beset by demon monsters, who uses a dark artifact to fight back and gets himself possessed by it, thereby entering into some psychological horror, it can be hard to nail down a genre. Is it a fantasy? Is it a Western? Is it a science fiction? Is it a horror? Sometimes we write and we just don't really know how to nail things down. If you are a true creative, you might have an image that is so unique, you need a professional to group it into a genre for you. See, genres are valuable. That's my first point that I want to make. Genres are proven to be valuable. If you look up genre online right now, you'll quickly learn that many writers use established genres, such as romance, in order to establish a working relationship with their readers. In other words, grouping your work into a genre ensures that your audience knows what they're spending money on. They know what to expect. They know that it's something that they like to read. They know they like romance novels. They understand where they fit into that genre, what they look for in that genre. But what they need to understand from you is what your book can do for them. So having a genre picked out helps you to explain that. You can explain that your book is acting within an established genre, but it'll be going in a slightly different direction. A great example of this would be my book, The Children of Ark. The Children of Ark is a drama of demon slaying. It's a post-apocalypse with a bunch of demon monsters that are going around devouring people. And the main character, Richard Renovan, basically has to learn how to be a superhero in a day. He has to, go out into the streets with no code, no structure, no spiritual, supernatural, law enforcement of any kind. Nope, just rogue. He has to go into the streets and start fighting back against these monsters, triggering a hero's journey, starting a hero's journey, rather. So I could say that it's Walking Dead, but with a touch of the superhero genre. That's the Calipar. So what genre is that? The genre is, could be horror, could be zombie apocalypse, could be apocalyptic, could be futuristic fantasy, what have you. There's a lot of genres that could fall into. But the important thing is that having mentioned a established genre such as The Walking Dead. So let's back up real quick. What did people love about The Walking Dead? Well, they loved the fact that anybody could die at any time. They liked the realistic grittiness and goriness of the zombie prosthetics and how it didn't really feel campy or forced in any way, but at least in the beginning, it really just felt real. Like this would be a real zombie apocalypse where you have a large group of people together and you pick up more people as you go, but anybody can get killed or eaten at any time. And the stakes are constantly rising. When we find out that the infection is actually a contagion that all people have, so if you shoot somebody, they will rise again as a walker. That's what they call the zombies. You'll have another zombie on your hands if you kill one of your rivals. And if they go around biting somebody, you could have a lot of walkers on your hands. So, The Walking Dead is something that just really gripped people and hooked people in with first, it's high stakes. It's super high stakes. Anybody can get killed in any episode that you watch. But then for the characters that are surviving along the way, just awesome character development as they, just like the character of Rick Grimes, he falls asleep in the first episode. He goes into a coma for 2 months because of a gunshot wound. And when he wakes up, it's not the same world. It was the same world when he went to sleep, but right after that, the zombie apocalypse hit, and now he and everybody else has to adjust and adapt to this new apocalyptic world that they've only ever heard about in movies. And that's another fun element to it, similar to how Pirates of the Caribbean kind of gave you realistic pirates instead of fairy tale pirates, at least in the first movie. The Walking Dead gave you a realistic apocalypse. It wasn't necessarily just any old zombie movie where, the laws of physics might not apply. No, it was, in one episode, there's a zombie stuck in a well, corrupting the well. So how do we get it out of there without polluting the water and putting ourselves even further into a pickle? So that's just a review of why people liked The Walking Dead. High stakes, tons of grit, tons of gore, never knew who was going to survive, always had your expectations tested, and great characters. So if I mention The Walking Dead while I'm promoting Calipar, I'm speaking about a pre-established genre. So right away in the reader's mind, they are already thinking about people are going to die. There's going to be monsters. There's going to be a little bit of blood. There's going to be a lot of horror scenarios. There's probably going to be a lot of travel and post-apocalyptic world stuff, like going out into the desert and foraging for food. So they're already thinking about this stuff when I mention genre. And that's important. The importance of that is that when you're selling, you don't have to really explain every element of your novel to get them hooked. You don't necessarily have to do that right away. You can start by mentioning a pre-established genre. Just that can get somebody hooked if they happen to really love that genre. And there are events that target genres. There are events that target genres where people who love that genre tend to gather, such as a Comic-Con for people who love comic books, science fiction, and superheroes, or HorrorCon or Fright Reads, where people who love horror books or movies gather together to see what's the latest, fresh content. So understanding genre can be important to starting your pitch. Once you mention the genre, you can start talking about how your work is different. Like I can say, so we start off in a zombie apocalypse type scenario, but then Richard Renovon really goes on to a hero's journey where he becomes sort of the sheriff in town, with the only one who has the means to fight back against these monsters. And that can grip somebody's interest. Well, I like the apocalypse genre and I do like superheroes, and this seems like it's bringing the two together in an interesting way. That is the importance of understanding genre. But, we're talking about marketing. Now, when it comes to the actual writing process, I feel differently. I know people who write in genre. I know people who say, I'm writing a romance novel, and they just follow romance novel tropes as they are putting the book together, and more power to them, because it's great to have a focus and a direction. But I'm not like that. And you may not be like that. We're all individuals, as I remind people frequently on Pen Night Radio, and you might not write in genre. You might write something that's so weird, you just don't know what genre you can group it into. And I got news for you. Here at Pen Night Radio, we think that's good. Hear me out. When you are creating, let's go back to, the first book I ever published, Barker's Rules, right? I didn't go into writing wanting to write a book like that. That was a book about a serial killer with superhuman abilities that wanted to abduct a young child. And it was about her plight as she tries to escape from him. I had no idea what I was talking about. Honestly, I had absolutely no idea what I was talking about. Supernatural, serial killer, kidnapping. None of what I was into when I was young, none of what I was into when I started writing books. When I started writing books, I wanted to go straight to superheroes because that was what I loved. I had a dream about a character who was held prisoner. This happened in like 2013 or something. And when I had that dream, I just couldn't get rid of it. And it filled me with this desire to just create the world that I saw in this dream and flesh it out as much as possible. It ate up my time for the better part of 2 years. And the next thing you knew, I was very hooked on this one scenario and all the interesting questions that came up. Will Melanie still be the same after she tangles with Justin Barker, having just been an innocent 16-year-old kid before this? Will this situation somehow be Barker's undoing? Will he feel any guilt? What happened to this guy to make him like this? I started getting hooked on questions, and I created a world that was called the Meridian, which was dark and gloomy and full of cobwebs and dusty and shattered glass and bodies, being badly buried in unmarked graves. These are just images you see throughout the books. And I didn't get those ideas until I was writing it. So I really wasn't writing in a genre. I didn't set out to write a horror book. What I set out to do was just make a vision a reality. And that vision just came to me. So folks, like, if you're writing something that feels like it could be science fiction, but it doesn't have any spaceships, it doesn't have any aliens, it doesn't have any, real technology of any kind, and if it does, it's just in the background, you could still be writing science fiction. I mean, Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, that was the first recorded example of science fiction. Most people agree. And she wrote it at a campfire with Lord Byron, and I forget the other guy's name, but they were just in a contest. There were no genres. There was no established genre except for maybe Pulp Fiction. I can't quite recall if vampires and Dracula and all that were already being written about. But the point is, Mary Shelley just wrote a book. And it was about a man who tested God by trying to create his own life and then had to deal with the consequences of having done something that only God is supposed to do. So that was Frankenstein. And because, he used technology and science to create the monster, it became known as science fiction. So when you're creating, I really don't think genre is important. I don't think it's important to know that during the creative process. I think you just need to write something and then figure out later where it falls into. I think that as a writer, you could write anything. You could write a story about two people who fall in love when they're in high school, but don't reconnect until they are like both 60. And you might be writing that even though, 60-year-old romance isn't the most popular thing to put on TV, but you might be writing that because that is what you, the listener right now, experienced. It's a personal story. It's what happened to you or what happened to someone you know. It was a profound life lesson that you want to make a reality. So you just do it and you figure out afterwards, I guess this is a romance, right? I mean, genre to me is woefully unimportant when you are first drafting or brainstorming a story. If you're thinking to yourself, what genre is this going to fit into? You might start leaning into tropes too early. Genres can rely very heavily on tropes. Star Wars has tropes. Lord of the Rings has tropes. Harry Potter had tropes. And I'm not saying that any one of them used tropes poorly necessarily, but what I am saying is that if you don't want to just write a Star Wars knockoff or a Lord of the Rings knockoff or a Potter knockoff, then you don't want to necessarily be focused on tropes when you're first coming up with your story. What you want to be focused on is how real is the story to you? Who are the characters? Why are these the characters in the story? What do they have to say? What do you want to get out from them for people to listen to? So, is genre important? Is genre unimportant? I would say that genre is very important to establishing a connection with your readers. And before you get to that step, I would say that genre is unimportant. The creative process should be unstifled. It should be unstifled. And if you're writing right now and you're struggling with a scene because you don't think it's super realistic, this will never work in a realistic fiction. You don't think that it's flashy enough. In surrealist fiction, this image isn't good enough. I got news for you. Finish that scene. Finish that scene exactly as it comes to you. When you read it back to yourself later, you'll figure out whether or not you need to go with a better idea. That could be because you're playing into a genre now, because you think that's who's going to read this, or it could be because as you're reading it, you figure out that everything in this manuscript you just typed up is everything you love about a certain genre. But before you get there, Knights, just pick up that pen, slay that demon of genre, wondering if you can break this rule or do this thing, and just write the darn thing as it comes to you and let people tell you whether or not it seems interesting. Well, I am very excited, folks, to get back to you very soon with our newest segment, which is Q&As from the audience as part of the Knights Hall. I don't have any props. I don't have much decorations. I don't have a new intro planned, but we will get to that soon, because when you start sending your questions into Pen Night Radio, we will start treating you to the Knights Hall. Back shortly. And we are back with the Knights Hall. I am so excited to finally have this segment coming off the ground. So the Knights Hall, as you know, is the place where all of you Pen Knights listening or watching Pen Night Radio can come into the Grand Hall, have a nice meal, and get ready to grab some new equipment and go out to battle. This is the segment where we focus on you. Whatever burning questions you have, whatever demons you need slayed, we answer that live right here on Pen Night Radio. We answer questions that come in before the show. The poll was posted earlier this morning before the episode. So those posts will come out every week on the Pen Night Radio Facebook page. Please go and follow that so you can send in your questions. And we will get right into it. Now, we only got one question today, but it is a meaty question. So we are just going to dive in. This one is from good old Andrew Bast, who is a collaborator at One True Promotion. And Andrew, if you don't know, is the king of genres. Everything he writes groups easily into a genre. He's just so good at writing with such focus that it's never hard for him to find his genre, and it's easy for him to find people in his genre. He has sold so many books as an independently published author, and he is breaking into so many different genres. He is somebody who, when he's on the show next, can really give some insight into this issue. But he's asking us today, just how important is it to understand how popular or unpopular genres are? Are there any genres that are larger than others? This is a deep question, and it requires a few minutes to answer. Here it is. I normally would answer a question in order, a multi-part question in order, but I actually am going to answer this one out of order. I want to hit that second part of the question first. Are there any genres that are larger than others? Here's an interesting fact. If you go to like an indie book blog right now, it could be by a writer, could be by an editor, could be by an agent. There's a lot of people that will tell you that genre doesn't really matter when it comes to marketing. And I can understand where they're coming from. You know, when you what they will tell you is that no matter if you are, great at writing romance and your romance targets, 16-year-old girls, they'll tell you that there is no specific genre of romance that is read by every 16-year-old girl. There's no specific genre such as science fiction or horror that is the most widely read amongst teens or adults or children if there's children's books. They'll tell you that it just doesn't exist. They'll tell you that the problem lies more so in establishing that connection with your readers. For instance, if a book within a certain genre, let's look at Harry Potter, for instance, a children's book, a magical children's book about a wizard boy going to wizard school. If your book series successfully draws people in and gives what was promised and also surpasses expectations and is fun for all the family to keep going back to, then odds are you might have a very successful book series on your hands because you established a connection with your readers. You establish that connection. In general, this is just spitballing. In general, magical wizard books might totally fail as a genre. 9 out of 10 just never see the light of day. But this one worked because it established a connection with the right readers all around the world. So a lot of people who write these blogs will accurately tell you that it's hard to measure what genres are most popular. And I can think that's very wise going back through history. I mean, The Lord of the Rings, I bring that up a lot on the podcast, is a very popular and cherished fantasy book. But Tolkien didn't see the kind of success that J.K. Rowling did in his lifetime. He was laughed at by a lot of people. They would say, "How's your Hobbit?" They were writing about these big, important philosophical topics about these big, important people. And meanwhile, this distinguished professor was writing about little hobbits in their hobbit hole, going out and playing around with magical creatures. And they would say, "Oh, how's your hobbit doing lately?" They would mock him. And now anybody who's in the fantasy genre, this might be less true recently now that the genre has blown up a bit more in the post Game of Thrones world. But at least for a little while, fantasy fans just revered J.R.R. Tolkien. They revered this guy who was made fun of. And George Lucas, oh my goodness gracious. We revere Star Wars today, but when George Lucas was trying to get that first movie off the ground, people laughed at him too. And he fought through. I've talked about this in previous shows before we started Pen Night Radio. If you were able to find some of my old blogs, which nobody can, it's a long story, but I used to talk about George Lucas and how much I appreciated him for motivating me, because against all of this doubt and mockery, he just pushed through to that release date and captivated what seemed like the whole darn world. So anyway, what I'm saying is the right project will establish the right connection with people. So a lot of people will tell you that genre is kind of a small detail here. But this was before Book Talk. Now, Book Talk, if you don't know, is a TikTok trend in which people, and typically romance writers, you know what? I'm butchering this. Let me actually just do a quick refresher real quick. Stay tuned. Okay, so What is Book Talk? This is from online. Book Talk is a sub-community on TikTok that focuses on books and literature. Creators, also known as book talkers, make videos that review, discuss, and joke about books they've read. These videos can include recommendations, theories, and discussions about popular book tropes like enemies to lovers or morally gray villains. Book talkers are known to dress up as characters from the books they love, an activity that has spawned the trendy book-related aesthetic known as Twilight Core. I don't actually know what that is, and I don't care to know because book talk is really not my thing. I'll get into that in a minute. But so we're in the book talk era right now, and in the book talk era, in the social media era, the post COVID-19 social media era, where everybody was at home for a year, really kicking their independent writing careers into heavy duty, or high gear, I should have said. They were going heavy duty with their writing careers. According to public books, romance is the largest and most distinct genre of book. Romance novels are the biggest category of fiction, making over 1.44 billion in sales revenue. Romance is also the most popular and profitable genre, making 1 billion a year, which covers a third of the entire fiction market. Contemporary romance is the most popular genre among readers worldwide and features stories of romantic relationships that take place in the present day. Listen, people can tell you until they're blue in the face that what really matters to you is establishing that connection with your readers. I would say that they are right if you are a starting author. But if you ask somebody, are there genres that are larger than others? The chart doesn't lie. We are currently living in an age where genres can actually gain a monopoly on the market. I've tried to sell Children of Arc to so many people on TikTok, and they've just asked me, is it smutty though? No, it is not smutty. It is a fantasy adventure that caters to most, if not all, ages. So there's not a lot of room for smut there. But that person just passed me right by because that's what they were looking for. It didn't matter how much work I put into it or how good it looked or how good my pitch was. It wasn't what that reader was looking for. People go to the genre of book they want to read. And in certain areas, again, such as book talk, certain genres have blown up so big that libraries will have an entire section just for that genre. So if you walk into a public library, which is an old organization, and there is a book talk section, well, try telling me that there's not a genre that is larger than other genres. I made a mistake. If you see a whole section dedicated to the platform, and in that platform you see a recurring pattern of genres, in this case romance, yeah, try telling me that genres aren't larger. Okay, the second part of Andrew's question. Just how important is it to understand how popular or unpopular genres are? I can answer this actually. So let's take the romance genre, for instance. The thing that I just read to all of you said that romance novels on TikTok that are blowing up tend to deal with contemporary romance in the present day. So if you're writing a romance novel about a couple in medieval times, which I am, by the way, super secret project, very excited to share that with you next year. Here's the thing. I don't know how it's going to do because it's not what Book Talk is looking for. Book Talk is looking for contemporary romance that takes place in today. So how important is it to understand how popular or unpopular genres are? Very important. What if I took this medieval fiction novel into Book Talk and expected it to perform just as well as the others, glossing over the fact that it's the modern romances that are doing so well on there? What if I was dressing up like these characters and saying all this stuff and I just didn't understand why people are passing me by? I could be going back to the book and rewriting it incessantly to try to find some kind of phrase or paragraph that works. But I'm missing the point that my pitch isn't working because I'm not playing to the right genre. It's extremely important to understand how popular genres are. When you're seeking traditional deals, because you just got to know what books are in the newspapers and you got to notice the pattern of what books are getting into the newspapers. You have to, if you're going to be competitive. And if you're going to be competitive as an indie artist, you got to know which books are popular or unpopular on Book Talk. When it comes to the unpopular books, I have something to say about that. If you can understand that your genre is unpopular, let's say um, zombie romance. Let's say you're writing a zombie romance, kind of like Warm Bodies. Okay, it's very important here to understand that if you are writing in an unpopular genre, and for all I know, that genre is popular, I'm just making this up. If you're writing in an unpopular genre, it's important to understand that the odds are going to be stacked against you. You can go into your pitch at a book signing fully aware of this and just going for it anyway, just pitching it for exactly what it is. You don't like to lie. You don't want to stretch the truth. You don't want to bury the lead. So you just say, this is a knockoff of Warm Bodies. You want to buy it? No. Okay. Or you can update your pitch. You can update your pitch by essentially doing what I do. Find the 3 things that are genuinely different about your story and that can kind of be barrier breaking in the genre, that can kind of bring it out of the genre. Yes, it's like Warm Bodies, but it's not about, zombies becoming more human. It's actually more so about people becoming more like zombies. It's actually about exploring the human consciousness, because I read a philosophy book about this one time, about the psychology of a zombie and what that means for philosophical thought. It was really very interesting. Basically, it was just tackling, what does it mean for the human consciousness to be lost when you become a zombie? And can we even hold a zombie to a philosophical moral standard, knowing that they just lack the same thought process? Really pretty interesting stuff if you're into philosophy. So you can talk about that in your pitch. You can draw attention away from the fact that you're writing in a pretty unpopular genre and just say, listen, this is going to give you a different experience. This is going to be an experience that breaks through the ceiling and gets you thinking about zombies in a different way. 9 times out of 10, this can actually close a purchase, because if people, even though you're not playing into tropes and even though you're not playing into what's trending, people are passionate about people who are passionate. People who are passionate about people who are passionate. If you are bringing your most passionate vision forward and you know how to identify the elements of it that are different and interesting and new, you can close a sale. I've closed many sales that way, not as many as I would like, but it's the beginning of building up a readership. So I would say it's important to understand what genres are popular. It's important to understand what genres are unpopular. And it's mostly important to the marketing process. Like I was saying before, to just the writing process, it really isn't all that important to understand genre. It can be demoralizing to have this great idea, but realize that there's no market for the genre. I'm a big proponent of just write the thing anyway, and then worry about genre later, because there are ways that you can play the system. That was the only question that came in today for the Night's Hall. So we will be back in a moment to close the show. Thank you, Andrew, for the great question. And thank you for listening to Pen Night Radio. Be back soon. And we are live to close the show. Thank you so much for listening this far. This is a shorter episode today. I didn't have much to say about genre, but it was important to me to get that message out. So we're getting about 6 minutes to 40. If you have a 40-minute commute, I hope that this was a good listen on your drive. If not, I can only try to make the next episodes longer. But I wanted to share some important information about where's OTP. Where is One True Promotion? That's another one of our new segments that we're featuring on the show. Where is One True Promotion? Folks, One True Promotion is coming to a library near you. Library systems have been our best friend lately. They are enthusiastic. They are eager. They like to platform authors, even if They're not doing a large scale book fair. They'll still set you up in the lobby and let you communicate with the patrons as they come in. Folks, Knights, I'm supposed to call you Knights. Libraries aren't going anywhere. I know a lot are closing down in states across the country, but the library system itself is not going anywhere. There's always going to be a place for children and adults to come and use the community services offered by a library and to engage with what's new in literature today. It gives readers a voice. When YA fiction is coming through the library system, when children's books are coming through the library system, and they have these lessons and these multicultural messages and these just wonderful examples of representation that make different groups of people feel seen. Folks, libraries are always going to be important. And One True Promotion loves to hang out with libraries. We've been to multiple library events. The most recent one was in Williamstown at the Free Library of Monroe Township. We were right in the parking lot selling our books to anybody who drove up and came to visit our tables. Thank you again, Free Library of Monroe, for platforming us. We also have some things going in the Vineland and Bridgeton Cumberland library systems. For example, we have a seminar that we do. Andrew and I have both been publishing for a while now, and we've learned the ins and outs of traditional publishing, hybrid publishing, and self-publishing. Those are the three options available to you. We have a whole comprehensive seminar that we do where we give details, the pros and cons of all three, which one works best for you based on where you're at, and what services each type of publisher offers, what services KDP offers versus Ingram Sparks, for instance. I mean, there's just so much to this seminar. We really can give you a crash course on how to get started in the publishing world with a good toolkit for success. We are coming to a library near you. The Free Library of Monroe has agreed to take us in for our seminar. We're working on Vineland Library. The Cumberland County Library is trying to set something up with us for July. All the dates will be coming in on a future episode of Pen Night Radio. I just want you to watch out and go to your local library, because if you love Pen Night Radio, if you love One True Promotion and you want to know more about us and how we can help you arm yourselves for battle in this publishing quest we're on, just go to the library, see if we're there, see if we're coming in, see if we're on the agenda, because we are coming to a library near you. And you should see us this year at the Arts and Authors Extravaganza, which is in Cherry Hill. And it is a gathering place for authors and musicians who want to get up on stage and pitch their books to a live crowd, and also raffle off special rewards to you for coming out and spending time with us. It is run by Kim Ross Hollingsworth, and it is a fine event that is free to enter. So if you would love to come down and see us at the Arts and Authors Extravaganza in August, that is where One True Promotion will be. And more information coming soon on the big event season in fall, in September, October, and November, because we've got our eye on some events. And not only can you see us at those events, but you will see some fantastic authors coming out for some of the events that we're looking at in some of the heavily populated areas that we're looking to get into. So that's where One True Promotion is. And now we are going to close the show. Knights, Pen Night Radio is dedicated to bringing you quality content that is educational and inspiring. If you would like to have your questions answered, please contribute to the Knights Hall. Whenever I post those Q&As on the Facebook page, answer the Q&As with your questions, and we will make sure that they are brought to light right here on the next episode. That is all we have for you today. Knights, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me talk about genre. I really hope that you won't be tied down by it, but if you are using it, you will use it well to get the best results on your publication. And with that, Knights, that's all I have for you today. So, right on.
Oh.